realizing the tremendous potential of the pharmaceutical products in the Nigerian market, and a vibrant and forward-looking pharmaceutical industry of Pakistan, we are glad to host today's session. The objective of today's session is to explore the available opportunities for the registration of pharmaceutical products. And for this, we have with us some of the most competent and proficient experts in the field who will be sharing their knowledge on the subject. Ladies and gentlemen, for the Q&A session, I'll request you to keep on sending your questions in the inbox so that we can address them later on. We will now begin today's proceedings with the recitation of the Holy Quran, for which I will invite Qari Akbar.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. A'udhu billahi minash shaytanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Iza jaa nasrullahi wal fath وَرَأَيْتَ النَّاسَ يَدْخُلُونَ فِي دِينِ اللَّهِ أَفْوَاجًا فَسَبِّحْ بِحَمْدِ رَبِّكَ وَاسْتَغْفِرْهُ إِنَّهُ كَانَ تَوَّابًا صدق الله العظيم.
Jazakallah Qari sir. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll once again, to make it more clear, I'll repeat myself that please keep on sending your questions in the inbox. Thank you. Now I will request Director General Trade Development Authority of Pakistan, Dr. Muhammad Hamid Ali, to please proceed with his welcome remarks. Sir, you have to unmute your mic, I believe so. We cannot hear you, sir.
Is it okay?
Sir, now we can hear you, please.
Okay. Thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. I am Dr. Muhammad Hamid Ali, Trade Development Authority of Pakistan's Director General from Karachi. It is my privilege to welcome Mr. Tokirul Haq, Chairman PPMA, MS Monica, who is Director Regulation NAFDAC, then MS Oseritin, consultant from Nigeria, Mr. Aslam Rauf, who is our CEO of DRAP, Mr. Tokirul Haq, as I've already mentioned, and our Trade and Investment Officer in Nigeria, Mr. Ali Tamkeen Bhatt, and our representative from Ministry of Commerce, Deputy Secretary, Unsia Zafar. I cordially welcome you all and the worthy participants besides from the speakers. As you all know, this webinar is planned to apprise all the relevant stakeholders about the pharmaceutical products of the Nigerian and Pakistani markets to create awareness that how we can further export to Nigeria, and we can also import from Nigeria similar or other products. Africa is a diverse continent with dynamism and a tremendous economic potential, and Nigeria is one of the rising star of Africa. And registration in Nigeria of our pharmaceutical products will remove the impediment of non-tariff barriers for which we can't export our pharmaceuticals. For successful access to that market, we are holding this seminar, and we realize that Nigeria is an established trading hub for West Africa. Similarly, Nigeria is the biggest and most populated country in Africa, and pharmaceutical manufacturing has still to take roots there, and it has got around $1.4 billion of imports, whereas Pakistan's exports to Nigeria right now stands at $4.7 million. I shall not take a lot of time of the experts who are keen to speak on this important issue. We are looking forward to increase our pharmaceutical exports and trade between both the countries, which will only be possible with our joint efforts and with the awareness as we are doing, and furthering this cause through our embassy and through our offices in tandem with your help. Now I would request the moderator to further walk the talk, please. Thank you very much and welcome all again.
Thank you, sir. I will now invite Mrs. Acertain Jayola, Managing Director and Principal Consultant in Principal MHP Consulting Limited, to share a presentation on the entry into the Nigerian pharma space from an operator's perspective. Please unmute.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Yes, can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I stand on existing protocols. I welcome the Director General of NAFDAC, ably represented by the Director of Regulatory and Registration in Nigeria, Dr. Emujeze, as well as the trade consultant, the trade office of the Pakistan here. I don't have the full protocol, so I will stand on existing protocol. So the topic I will be handling today is entry into the pharma space in Nigeria from an operator's perspective. Sorry, let me just do slideshow. Can you see the slides? Yeah. Just a minute. Okay, good. So my name is Acertain Jayola, and Managing Director and the Principal Consultant of Fencel MHP Consulting Limited. It is a consulting firm that basically deals with pharmaceuticals and allied products. My background is I'm a pharmacist with over 30 years experience in the industry, and I currently work with a lot of pharma companies trying to get them to enter the Nigerian space and other sub-Saharan markets. So this morning, slide is not moving. Okay, let me just make sure I move on. So my outline for this morning's presentation, I'll talk a bit about the background of the pharma industry in Nigeria. I'll talk about the Nigeria pharmaceutical overview, and then certifications, market indices, just a little bit of it, opportunities, then the roadmap to the pharma industry, and a bit of glossary if there is time. Now, the background to the pharma industry in Nigeria. The pharma industry in Nigeria can be traced as far back as the roots of when we're doing traditional medicines, botanical drugs such as quinine and morphine, as far back as the mid-19th century. And up till today, there's still a lot of confidence in herbal preparations in Nigeria. He started his pharmaceutical journey as far back as 1925, when the first school of pharmacy was established in Lagos, Nigeria, at the Yaba School of Pharmacy. It therefore evolved to become the missionary hospitals, the community, industry, research, and then development and academia. I must say at this stage that research and development is still at very infancy stage in Nigeria. The Nigeria pharmaceutical industry generally is very broad and complex. There are lots of numerous players. We have manufacturers, we have national regulators, wholesalers, retailers, government ministries, and other stakeholders. One of the most developed pharma markets in the whole of Africa. It has a huge population of over 190 million people. And although the medicine spend, per capita spend is quite low, but because a lot of people are paying out of pocket. However, there is a lot of opportunities. The market is highly driven by medicine importation. You have big MNCs, multinationals like GSK, Sanofi, AstraZeneca, and a few generics, and also a large number of generics coming from Asia, and mainly India, China, and recently, hopefully, Pakistan. We have a few others also coming from Eastern Europe and other markets. However, there is a strong drive in the by the Nigerian government to move to local manufacturing, because about 70% of the drug need of Nigeria are dealt with from importation. Therefore, NAFDAC and the Central Bank of Nigeria have put down policies and intervention funds to support the local farmer business here. So if you're looking at opportunities for the Nigerian space, there's a great opportunity for local manufacturing, because that is the way the Nigerian government is driving the business right now. There are over about 130 pharmaceutical manufacturing companies in Nigeria, but only very few of them are quoted in the stock exchange. Prior to now, in the early 70s and 80s, a couple of multinationals had their pharma manufacturing outfits here. But when the Naira devalued, a lot of them moved out. However, a lot of the manufacturing companies here are getting their raw materials from Asia mainly, as well as Europe. The machines and equipment are all most of the time are mainly imported. However, labor is quite cheap. And now with the increase in the pharmacy schools from one single one in Yaba to several in several universities, there is annually a number of students coming out of universities, either as pharmacists or scientists. However, there's still a lot of gap that exists with technical expertise in specific areas, especially in production. You have gaps in areas of HVAC validation, all types of GMP requirements in the factory, all those kind of things. We have the expertise gap there. And the Nigerian country we have a national drug policy that aims for 90% of the national drug sufficiency in drugs, 70% of sufficiency. Therefore, there is a drive, a throughput towards production of generics and raising the tariff for non-tariff barriers on imported drugs. When the NAFDAC director speaks, she will talk about ceilings, whereby products that already have enough, the government seals it and then they push them into local manufacturing. Government is also supporting WHO pre-qualification of factories. There is also, the Nigerian country is intellectual property is signed into the WTO in 1995, but had a transition period and then started implementation in 2006. Pricing, I'll talk a little bit about pricing. Nigeria is a very free market, so everybody you can price the drug the way you want. However, the market is controlled by the government tariffs, the taxes, the distribution markups. They account for the majority of the final price. So you won't be surprised that you find a particular drug sold in a particular price in a particular part of the country and sold in another way in another part of the country. This is being controlled by market forces. Recently, the government set up what they call the import adjustment tax for products that fall into HS code 3003 and 3004, just to encourage people to produce more, and because of the scarce resources that are available. Now, I quickly run to certifications that you might need to come into the country. The first thing is that you need a local entity. It needs to be registered by the Corporate Affairs Commission of Nigeria, and you might need a partner, or you come in by yourself. But definitely you need a distributor, because you need distributors because the country is vast from north to south. Then you have the Pharmacists Council of Nigeria, where you need a local pharmacist in the business. And then the premises have to be registered as well. And today you'll be hearing about the main regulatory body in Nigeria, the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC, who is responsible for authorization to guarantee your importation. Of course, there are more professional bodies as well and trade associations available in the country. So it is advisable that you become part of any of the trade associations that are available. I'll just touch a bit about the market indices that would, I'm sure these you can find online, but just to tell you the opportunities that are available. The total pharma market in Nigeria is quite big. It's over $600 million US, according to the FITS solution that was recently released. The pharma imports contribute almost 50% of that amount, because, like I mentioned already, the local manufacturing is still just picking up, considering the population that we have, and is expected to grow year on year. Innovative medicines are not normally, most of them are not manufactured. They are imported mainly by MNCs. And the generics also come in as well. They play key partners with China, the US, with India, Turkey, and I'm sure Pakistan will come into the space in recent times. What are the opportunities you might find in Nigeria? Because Nigeria is big, I always say it's about 5 countries in one. There's a lot of money due to the oil reserves. It's one of the most developed African countries you would find concerning the pharmaceutical business. There's a huge population. Import restrictions on certain drug items also encourage, but there are only 17 of them currently on the prohibition list. They encourage local manufacturers to produce. The government is very focused on self-sufficiency in the pharma sector, and therefore there is an opportunity for the Pakistan pharma business to collaborate with local manufacturers to produce quality medicines, because like I mentioned, about 130 of them are already there. I did a little roadmap to the Nigerian pharma space, and what I would tell you is that for you to come into the Nigerian business, the first thing you must do is they do a robust market analysis. What area do you want to play in? There are non-communicable diseases, and then there is a communicable one. I would tell you that the non-communicable diseases are rising at an exponential rate because of the urbanization in Nigeria. So you find that oncology, cardiology, everything is rising. So there's opportunity there, as well as the tropical diseases that you already have, the malarias of this world, and of course, infectious diseases. I'll just go to the last 2 slides. The step 2, which is the base of today's discussion, is the regulatory processes. The main regulatory agency in Nigeria, of course, is NAFDAC. Officially, on the website of NAFDAC, to get a product approved in Nigeria is 120 days. However, in reality, from us that operate here, the timeline might be due to a lot of questions that come. Maybe we don't respond on time to questions from NAFDAC, lab testing, the GMP site inspection, clinical trials might be requested for new entities. So the timeline just moves out. Once you finish your regulatory processes, the next key line is to go ahead and do your product launch. In this case, there is a key question. Do you want to go alone and set up a scientific office or a legal entity in Nigeria? Or do you want to go with a partner, whereby you get a distributor to move with your products, or you get somebody to hold your marketing authorization holder and holding, and then you have several distributors, at least 3, to move your products around the country. I think I will stop here so that you can hear a lot from the next speaker, who will be talking more about the regulatory processes, because you cannot sell any product in Nigeria without a NAFDAC registration. So that is a very key time. And of course, I can take questions during the Q&A. Having said that, I say thank you for listening. On the next slide is my detail. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Giola, for your comprehensive overview. Now I would like to invite Dr. Monica, Director, Registration and Regulatory Affairs, NAFDAC, for her presentation on entry into the Nigerian pharma space from the regulator's perspective.
Yes, the Director General of the Trade Development Authority of Pakistan, the Chairman PPMA, the representatives of the Minister of Commerce, the Commercial Attaché for the Pakistani High Commission in Nigeria, distinguished stakeholders from the Pakistani pharmaceutical sector, good morning or good afternoon in Pakistan. I would like to, first of all, on behalf of the Director General of NAFDAC, thank you most sincerely for this invitation. We are very honored to be able to speak with you, to familiarize you a little bit with what we do in Nigeria as NAFDAC. As has been said, we're talking about understanding the regulatory environment within Nigeria, and I'll briefly take you through a little background about NAFDAC, how we regulate, ease of doing business, regulatory activities, progress that we've made over the years, some pitfalls, recent initiatives, and then we will conclude. So let's put ourselves in perspective. As you all know, NAFDAC Nigeria is situated in West Africa. Capital city is in Abuja. We have a population of about 200 million and growing, with a literacy rate of about 68%, and a GDP per capita as stated on the slide. Nigeria has 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory. Abuja is the FCT is centrally located. NAFDAC has a presence in all 36 states in Nigeria and the Federal Capital Territory. We have operational bases in Lagos as well as in Abuja, which is considered the head office. Now, by the mandate of NAFDAC, which was established by Decree 15 of 1993, as amended, and now referred to as the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control Act, Cap N1 Laws of the Federation of Nigeria, the Act mandates NAFDAC to regulate and control the manufacture, importation, exportation, distribution, advertisement, sale, and use of foods, drugs, cosmetics, chemicals, detergents, medical devices, and packaged water, which we collectively refer to as regulated products. So that is where we get our powers from, the NAFDAC mandate. Now, the agency currently has 18 directorates. I'm not going to go through all of them, but suffice it to say that they cover the regulated products that we have a mandate to regulate. We have pharmacovigilance and post-marketing surveillance, laboratory services, veterinary medicines and allied products, narcotics and controlled substances. And then we have also investigation and enforcement, the Ports Inspection Directorate, chemical evaluation and research, just to name a few. So the slide captures all the directorates, but I just referred to a few for this presentation. Now, some of our regulatory activities, how do we regulate? I mean, we go by the international best practice as relates to the regulation of products. And there are quite a few activities that are carried out in the regulatory space to make sure products meet set standards of quality, safety, and efficacy. Registration and licensing, obviously, is the one we're talking about and is what people are more familiar with. But we also have inspection, post-marketing surveillance, advertisement control, stakeholder engagement, export control, enforcement and investigation, and narcotics control, just but to name but a few. Now, in 2017, Nigeria issued an executive order. We talked about ease of doing business, and that was created to make sure that agencies of government put in measures to make it easier for business to be conducted within the country. There was a Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council, known fondly as PEBEC, with its secretariat, to coordinate the implementation of the executive orders, which spanned around 3 main areas. For the one that is relevant to NAFDAC was the Executive Order 1, where we have a promotion of transparency and efficiency in the business environment designed to facilitate the ease of doing business in the country. So that is the plank that relates to NAFDAC. There are two other planks that refer to local content in procurement. That's Executive Order 3, and the Executive Order 2 talks about budgetary estimates for statutory and non-statutory agencies. So we lean more on Executive Order 1, and then there's an Executive Order 3, which speaks also to local content and localization of products. Now, as a fallout from the ease of doing business, we put quite a few things in place. We cleared backlogs. I know Mr. Sarentine referred to some of the delays, but in the regulatory space, it's not unheard of. We worked to clear our backlogs. We decentralized some of our processes. We enabled ICT, where we have a more robust engagement using information technology, have quite a few regulatory reforms that have been put into place, and the digitization, which is ongoing. We have several of our platforms which speak to that. We have the single trade window, that's a TradeGov portal after you've registered your product, which links with the customs agencies and all agencies of government that are involved when you're importing your product. And then we have the NAFDAC Automated Product Administration and Monitoring System, NAPAMS, which allows you to have an e-registration where you can submit your applications for registration remotely. So we're very proud of that platform. We have continued to enhance that platform, which allows you to submit your applications for registration. Now, NAFDAC achieved certain reforms under the Executive Order 1, where we spoke about the transparency. If you go to our website, www.nafdac.gov.ng, you will see quite a lot of information that is up on the website in an attempt to increase our transparency. We also have the 120 working days timeline, which we are working assiduously to achieve, as well as service level agreements established with different agencies of government, and then the one government system where we all come together to support what is going on in the country. Now, looking at the regulatory activities, there are some key activities that come into focus when you talk about registration, but we want to always look at it from a life cycle perspective. It's not only about registering products. So you see the first thing we talked about there is pharmacovigilance and post-marketing surveillance, because that is very key to us. Yes, at the point of registration, products are expected to meet certain basic requirements, but we also expect that once they are registered and they come in, we will be conducting pharmacovigilance and post-marketing surveillance to ensure that the products continue to maintain the quality with which they were licensed. We have worked to streamline our regulatory process where some unnecessary processes or some duplicative processes that were in place, we have worked to remove and see how we can make it a little bit easier to remove unnecessary requirements. The use of technology is a topmost priority for us. I've mentioned the NAPAMS already. There is the PITFALLS, which is the Ports Inspection, Data Capture and Risk Management System, which the Ports Inspection Directorate, which has responsibility once you're bringing in the product, they have a data management tool where they use to capture data of companies that are importing products into Nigeria. I mentioned the single window trade portal, which is a portal where all players that are involved in the importation of your products get information about regulated products, in this regard, NAFDAC regulated products. We have the GMP, Good Manufacturing Practice Inspections, which I'll talk a little bit about later, but this is also a requirement. We have to make sure that facilities that produce NAFDAC regulated products comply to basic tenets of GMP. And we have the dossier evaluation and a dossier screening process in line with the global best practice, where we expect submissions to come in the Common Technical Document, CTD format, for us to be able to review and progress. And that gives us an assurance that the products meet set standards of quality, safety, and efficacy. We have embraced risk categorization across our regulatory activities, where we are embracing risk-based regulation in the different areas. So depending on the risk, we categorize that, and that determines the level of activities that we conduct. So today we're talking more about registration. Some people call it licensing, which is a regulatory mechanism for the control and regulation of products to ensure that they are safe and of good quality and they are efficacious. So basically, just to ensure that there's conformance and compliance with set standards, licensing or registration is a regulatory mechanism that is in place. Very simplistically put, three basic approaches or components in the registration. We look at documentation, we look at your facility, And we look at the products either through a lab or risk-based review or analysis. When we talk about the documentation, that's referring to the evidence that you provide to give us some assurance that the product is of good quality. That includes the CTD and other necessary documents that support your application. So again, very simplistically, you have 6 steps that I've put up here that guide you through the registration process. As I said, we have an online platform that is the NAPAMS, which is an online platform. You can go in, you can log in wherever you are, you can create a profile on NAPAMS, and you can submit an application for registration of a NAFDAC regulated products. And then we talk about the inspection or the GMP assessment, which is done by the Drug Evaluation and Research Directorate. We talk about product samples, laboratory testing, product presentation, and then marketing authorization. Again, I said very simplistically put in that step-by-step guide. This next slide just speaks to what we're talking about, life cycle management and the different elements of regulation that come into it. I'll talk a little bit about the timelines, which have been mentioned. We are working very seriously to make sure that we have 120 working days for new products or for renewals. And then for changes in packs or labels, we're looking at 7 working days, as well as import permits for samples for laboratory analysis. Now, all these are subject to all the requirements being met. A lot of times we issue compliance directives, and we expect applicants to be responsive to our applications or to our compliance directives, because once we don't get a response, the application does not progress further. And a lot of times that is a cause for concern. So we expect responses to our compliances, at which time the clock stops. Now, the NAFDAC tariff is on the website for everybody to see. If you go on the website, you'll be able to access the tariff and see what tariffs are applicable for the different regulated products that you have. For ease of navigation, we have extracted those that are relevant, the sections that are relevant to you as for the pharmaceuticals. So you have a tariff that covers the registration and covers the forms as well as the inspection. So you can access that and see. Critical documentation for registration. Again, the application form is online. We like to inform applicants to make sure that the information entered on the form is as accurate as possible, because whatever information is entered on the form is what follows the product through the registration process. Again, we have moved to using the digital platform, and we move it from your application. It progresses through our system and is processed. So we need to make sure that the application you provide is accurate. The artworks and the labels are also uploaded to allow us to look at the products, vet the labels, and ensure that they comply with our requirements. And if you have a trademark or a brand, you need to have evidence of registration of the trademark within Nigeria. Now, if you are giving a power of attorney to a company, or you are doing a contract manufacturing, we need to have documentation to show that. Now, the power of attorney clearly shows that company X in Pakistan is giving company Y in Nigeria power to register the products in Nigeria for a duration of 5 years. Now, if you are manufacturing for somebody, then you have a contract manufacturing agreement, which will stipulate the relationship and the responsibilities of the two parties. Certificates of free sales are required to show that the product is freely sold in the country of manufacture, as well as the submission of a dossier in a common technical document, CTD format, which will be submitted for screening before it will be accepted, and you will be allowed to submit your application for registration. At the point of submission of samples, we also talk about the certificate of analysis, and then we talk of the certificate of incorporation of the company in Nigeria. In order to be able to submit an application in Nigeria, we need an incorporated legal entity in Nigeria to be able to do that. You can choose how you do that, but we insist, and it is a requirement, that it must be an incorporated company in Nigeria that is submitting the application. So you can either work with an existing concern, you can set up a concern, or you can even have another entity submit the application and hold your licenses for you. That is your choice. For facilities that are located offshore, you have to be very careful as to who owns what and who does what. If you are a manufacturer and this facility is yours, that's fine. But again, if you're contract manufacturing, it must be very clear who is contract manufacturing for what, for who, and at what point in time. Under the inspection arm, we have what is called the facility verification, which is an attempt to confirm compliance with the CGMP. That is the remit of the Drug Evaluation and Research Directorate. They will have that form filled and you will submit it to that directorate. They will review that form and make a determination based on the information that you submit as to the compliance of the facility, whether they will be able to clear the facility so that the registration will progress, or whether they will categorize the facility as a high-risk facility, in which case inspection would need to be carried out before the registration process can be completed. For the products, we look at laboratory testing. Now this we have looked at very closely, and we are looking at a risk-based approach for testing of products for registration. In the past, there was a requirement that all products needed to be tested before registration. Right now, we do test, but not necessarily at the point of registration, because more often than not, registration samples are most likely to be compliant. Also, there is an element of risk. There's a risk categorization we do. For low-risk products, we will look more at waiting to see the batch of products that come in for commercialization. For high-risk products, such as sterile products and parenterals, we want to be assured of the sterility and the compliance with set parameters. So more often than not, those products will be tested. But we do know that you cannot test the quality into a product. The quality of a product is determined by the compliance with CGMP during production, and that is something that we're very, very particular about. We look to encourage companies to imbibe the quality culture in the production scenario. We are aware that compliance with quality infrastructure, SOPs, work instructions are very much imbibed, and we know that that is an easier tenet for you to embrace, and we want to encourage more companies to look to have quality management systems in place which are certified where possible. It's not a requirement, but it is a nice thing to do for you to get your facility up to speed and make sure you can consistently produce products that meet the expected standards over time. And as you all know probably better than me, the different components of QMS, which relates to different things, including your personnel and the facility that you have. So as a registration 101, I always like to tell people information is very key. I'm very impressed that the reach out by the High Commission in Canada and the Trade Development Authority of Pakistan to try to make sure that stakeholders are informed about the expectations. It is very helpful. We do also have a lot of information on the website where you can educate yourself of what NAFDAC is doing and the regulatory expectations. So I would urge you to visit www.nafdac.gov.ng, and where you can see our regulations, you can see our guidelines, and there's quite a bit of information that is available on the website. Now, there are quite a few regulations and guidelines that relate to drugs. I've captured most of them here. We have the drugs and related products registration regulations. We have drug labeling regulations. We have guidelines for the registration of imported drug products, medical devices, and we have quality guidelines for variations, and we have the links. We will share these slides at a later date so you can have access to this information. Now, there are certain pitfalls that we have noticed over time. What are the issues that a lot of people or some people come across when they are looking to see about getting their products licensed within Nigeria? One thing I must say, and I think Osaratin referred to it as well, there is a federal government import prohibition list. Now, that is a list of products for which the government of Nigeria has deemed that we cannot import. They are only up for local manufacture. There is a lot of emphasis now being made to support the local manufacture of products. And the COVID-19 pandemic was something that really brought that close to home for most people, where you have such a dependence on importation in the face of a pandemic. You're struggling to make sure that the health needs of your population are catered to. So that also has added to this drive. And so there are quite a few products on the federal import prohibition list. We have the link there as well, where you can get on and see, but these include products such as paracetamol, for example, aspirins. They're very basic formulations that are on that list that we will not be registering at all. We also do have a NAFDAC sealing list. These are products for which NAFDAC has made a determination that we have quite a few registered products within those categories. And as such, we will not be accepting applications for those products that we have placed on sealing. Now, the sealing list is being reviewed as we speak now. That list is currently being reviewed. We will share the list as it exists now. And then once the list is reviewed, we can also share that. We do notice some documentary deficiencies in some of the submissions. Again, because it's a remote submission, it's a digital submission, we are not in control of what is uploaded and sent in. But once it comes in and we begin the review, we notice that some documents are either not complete or not duly attested. Some have already expired before they're submitted and things like that. Non-compliance to compliance directives, I mentioned that before. Once an application comes in, you need to watch the portal to see the response that you get. If we raise issues or ask questions, we need to have a response back from you. It's a digital platform. If we don't get a response back, the application cannot be progressed. So whether you agree with the compliance directive or not, we need a response or a feedback from you to allow us to progress the application. We also see labeling lapses. We have regulations about the minimal information that must be on a product label. For example, you must have the generic name of the product on the package. You must have a batch number, manufacturing expiry date. For prescription-only medicines, you cannot have the dosage on the pack, things like that. So there's some very basic labeling requirements that must be on the package. Yes, you can use other languages, but English must also appear on the label. Then we have sometimes unsubstantiated claims, any claims that are made, and this might not necessarily apply to prescription medicines, but a lot of times we see that in the cosmetics and sometimes with the herbal products, where we have unsubstantiated claims which are not acceptable. Now, if you have an unsatisfactory facility status, unfortunately, with that, we cannot progress the registration. So that portends a little bit of a problem. If the directorate that has responsibility for making a determination on the status of your facility deems it as unsatisfactory, in that case, it would require a physical inspection. Now, with the COVID pandemic at the state it is now, that is a little bit of a problem. I do know that they've been having remote inspections, but I don't have the final word, but I know they've been doing that. They've been doing a lot of documentation reviews, but if it comes out unsatisfactory, then we will not be able to progress it. Now, for products that we send to the lab, if you have a product that fails upon laboratory analysis, and this could be at registration or it could be at the point of commercialization, and products fail for different reasons, formulation, stability, contamination, or even just glitches during the process. If you have a product failure, then we cannot progress the registration. So I urge you to engage again the agency. I have our email up there. I also have the email for the Drug Evaluation and Research Directorate that have responsibility for inspections. I expect they would be on this call, but at the last point I checked, I didn't see them, but they should come up on this call as well. Provided a list of the pharma-related technical directorates because we talk about registration, but registration doesn't work in isolation. So for example, if you have a product that is a narcotic, we have a Narcotics and Controlled Substances Directorate, which has responsibility for ensuring compliance with all international control mechanisms that have been put in place. So whether it's under international control or under national control, there are certain requirements that must be met, and that directorate has that responsibility, so we work very closely with them. So for example, if you have some containing like a pseudoephedrine containing preparation, for example, or a tramadol, or a pentazocine, for example, we would be working closely with them from the point of even issuing you your import permits. They will issue you permits to import and permit to clear the samples for us to progress. And by the time you finish, they will also be controlling that product when you go to commercialize. Investigation and enforcement has responsibility when you have breaches. So for example, if you have somebody has, for example, counterfeited your products, that would be investigation and enforcement. They would have responsibility for that. They also man the task force on substandard and falsified products, which would be looking into things like that. I've said a lot about pharmacovigilance and post-marketing surveillance. We are encouraging and mandating marketing authorization holders to have responsible and focal people for pharmacovigilance. You must have a structure in place to make sure that pharmacovigilance is active and running for your products, and you have that responsibility, which we share with you. I've put up the chemical evaluation and research as well. If you move to local manufacture, some of your products, you might need a chemical permit. For the APIs, the drug evaluation and research have responsibility in that regard. And then we have the Director of Laboratory Services for Drugs and Biologics. I've also put his contact up there. We do not operate in isolation. We are very, very sensitive to what is going on both internationally and locally. We are very strong within the West African sub-region, working with the West African Health Organization, the ECOWAS, the Economic Community of West African States, and looking at harmonization of regulatory processes. One of the key developments from our work within the region is the deployment of the CTD, which is the same document in use within the West African submission to make it easier for you to get your products registered within the region. So for example, if you were to get your product registered in NAFDAC Nigeria, it is easier for you to register your products in the other West African countries. They tend to look very favorably at the registration that we have granted. We're very active in the AU, that's the Africa Medicines Regulatory Harmonization, and obviously we work very closely with the WHO, and we participate in quite a few of the initiatives under the WHO, under the pre-qualification program. We do collaborative registrations for products that have got WHO pre-Q. We participate in the WHO collaborative registration procedure, which makes it easier and faster for you to register a product that has been given WHO pre-Q. Hello? Hello? Can I continue?
We can hear you. Yes, please continue, please.
Yes, sure, please, yes, sure.
So we work also very closely with the United States Agency for International Development and also with the Swiss Medic, where we have also a collaborative platform that is ongoing, where products that are registered under their collaborative platform will get some consideration when we come to registration. The AUDA NEPAD is the African Union initiative. We're very strong in that, and we continue to embrace that. Now, recent initiatives, I talked about the quality management system. NAFDAC is ISO 9001 certified. The whole agency is certified. And our labs also maintain ISO certifications. We have been expanding the scopes for the different laboratories in NAFDAC. And so that supports us to have an entrenched quality management system across the agency. We have recently in Nigeria deployed the National Pharmaceutical Traceability Strategy, which looks to support and strengthen the supply chain for pharmaceuticals, where we'll be using the GS1 track and trace to monitor and safeguard the supply chain. That was recently launched earlier this year by the Honorable Minister of Health, and NAFDAC and Ministry of Health co-chair that strategy, where we look to, in the next 5 years, implement traceability across the pharmaceutical supply chain. We're actively engaged with the WHO in the Global Benchmarking Tool, which is a tool to speak to the regulatory system strengthening within the agency. We have continued to work with them. We have done our self-audit. The WHO has been here to assess what we have. We are addressing certain gaps, and we continue to build on that. The take home from that is you end up with a strengthened regulatory system, and it continues to be a working process. There's quite a lot of work that is being done across the different regulatory functions, whether you talk about marketing authorization, inspections, clinical trial approval, handling of substandard or falsified products, or our regulatory framework in its totality, the legal backing that we have, legislation and policy that are in place. All of that comes under the WHO GBT, which we are working very, very, very hard on. There is the Clean Report of Inspection, CRIA. As we speak now, I don't believe it covers Pakistan. I know it is on for India and China, possibly because of the volume of products that come out of India and China. I'm not saying that tomorrow Pakistan will not be added on the list, but the prime countries on that list are India and China, where we have some quality testing that is done on shipments before they leave India or China for Nigeria. We have the 5+5 policy, which speaks to the localization of pharmaceutical products. We at this point, we really want to encourage the partnerships to have a balanced kind of arrangement where we're either looking to bring in products that are not manufactured in Nigeria or partner and come to produce locally. You can either do a tech transfer, you can have a partnership, but we are really looking to shift the balance where we have such a dependence on importation. We are not encouraging those for the molecules that we currently have. And the 5+5 policy speaks to that. What that policy basically means is that when we give a marketing authorization, we give it for 5 years. The first license you get for a pharmaceutical product will be for 5 years, and then you can renew. At the point of renewal, we are expecting that you should be able to show us how you are moving to localize that product. That's what the 5+5 means. So you have 5 years free and clear, registered, and then by the time you're renewing, you must be building a partnership with local industry, or you must be domesticating your product. So as you look to select the product portfolios that you bring in, you should be having a forward-looking plan as to what you're going to do futuristically speaking. If there is existing capacity that you can use in country, that's fine. If there isn't, that is understood, but we could encourage you to look to see how you could bring some of that technology that you have and localize it for the benefit of both countries. So with that, I will conclude. I think I saw quite a few questions going into the chat, but I trust this has given you a little bit of clarity on our regulatory processes and initiatives and our attempts to improve and ease business. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr.